All right, so today, before we continue on the modeling of the boot, there's this new trick that I've now learned from Flip Normals. If you're not aware of Flip Normals, they are an amazing YouTube channel for all kinds of modeling stuff. You want to model a ZBrush, you want to model in Maya, things like that. These guys are a really good resource for that. Um, and they have a little trick that they use when they're doing retopology in Maya. So for example, with my scan here, if I show this, you can see that my scan is up to about 1.8 million polygons, and of course this is weighing down my file, making things slow. So and you start to notice it when you're playing with quad draw, and how things start to move really slow. And even if you delete history all the time, things start to bog down as your mesh becomes more and more complex. So there's a little trick that you can use here. And what we're going to do is we're going to cache out the boot as an Alembic, as a GPU cache. Okay, now this may or may not be there by default. The way you turn that on is under the Windows Settings Preferences. You go to Plugin Manager, and somewhere in here, GPU cache. You want to make sure that's turned on there, and then it'll pop up in there. So if it's not there, this is where you want to go, excuse me, to turn it on. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to cache, GPU cache. I'm going to export selection. Let's just go in here. You want to make sure it's at the current frame. You don't want to do a range of frames. You just want a single frame because it's not animated, it's not deforming, it's not changing shape or anything like that. So just bear that in mind. I think I left everything else at its default, and then export it. And then of course, if your project is set, it's going to put it in your Alembic folder, and we'll just call this boot scan and export that. Okay, so now you can see that it's been saved. And then what I could do is actually delete this one. So if you now import your GPU cache, the boot scan, you'll see that it comes in, and you'll notice that I do not have a poly count here for this boot. That's because it's not actually in this file. So the polygons aren't in this file. You're going to notice that after you save this file, so for example right here you can see that this version 23, the size of the file was 203 megabytes. And then as I kept working on it, I did that. I made a GPU cache, and now my file is down to 2 megabytes. Okay, so this is just going to speed up your workflow a little bit. Quadro is not going to bog down as much. It'll still bog down a little bit, but if you delete history often enough, you should have no problem. The nice thing, of course, is that now, even though this is not technically in this file, it's just a cache, it can be used like it was in this file. So I can make it live, and I can get my quad draw and start to place polygons on there. And if you've been working with quad draw, you'll notice that things are starting to move a lot faster, a lot smoother. So it's not going to bog you down as much. This is a nice little trick that I didn't know about, and I'm glad I found this out because my computer is not the newest computer in the world. So it's nice having any kind of trick that can help you speed up the workflow. And it does it very nicely. You can see that things are really nice and smooth, and they move along pretty well. So that's a little trick, using the GPU cache as your scan. And that way, as you can see, as I've worked on this boot, I've had 200 megabyte files just piling up because I do save incrementally. So it would be a good idea to use this little trick here. Now, before you actually delete the original boot from your scene, it might not hurt to export it out into a new file, just so that you have it there in case you ever need it for anything. I don't know if we can project normal maps from the GPU cache. So I have it saved off. Right here it says boot scan. That's just the actual scan itself by itself, so that if I do need to bring it back in here for other things that I might need to do, I haven't lost it forever. So before you delete it from your scene, make sure you export it out into a new file. Okay, so that's just a little trick that I like to use here. Let me go to my latest file here. And it's just going to speed you up, and also it's going to use up less hard drive space, because now you have much smaller files than you had before. So instead of 200 and some megabytes, I have now 2 megabytes, which is much nicer. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and continue with the modeling of our boot here. And let me see with this file here. Let me just update it. There we go. All right, so here we go. So what I need to do is actually, I want to go ahead and actually hide this guy here. What I need to do is actually model the undersides of these here, so that we don't just stop here, actually fold over. You know, just a bunch of extrusions basically that I need to do here. So I'm going to select all the way to here, hit Control E. And the reason I use Control E instead of just Shift and dragging is because once I activate the actual extrude tool, if I use the blue arrow, I could actually move things in like this. And that's going to give me the surface I want, because they're going to move sort of relative to the original positions. So I'm going to do the same here. Control E to activate extrude, and then use the blue arrow to just extrude this in. I don't think I'm going to need much more than that. And then with these guys here, I might actually just bridge this, and there we go. So what that looks like when it's smooth is you can see that we now fold over to create that nice lip there. I don't think I'm going to need any more than that. So let's go ahead and continue. And Control E, blue arrow, extrude that in. Let's just adjust here. And bridge that. Let's do the same. Control E, move it on the blue arrow, and adjust. Maybe pull this one here. And bridge this. Control E. And if it goes too far in, you can always pull it out with the green arrow, the y-axis. And then you could always just adjust it by hand as well. I don't think we need to be too crazy about this the inner surfaces, because you're never ever going to see those. So let's not worry about them too much. So now here, maybe I'll start, right here. And let's go to here. Control E, move it in on the blue axis. And this is going to be a little bit tricky here, so I'm going to just make some adjustments here just to clean things up a little. And I'm not liking this angle here, so what I might do is actually select these and just move them in, so this is a little bit more gradual. Maybe bring this back a little bit so we have a nicer shape there. And just adjust this. And all these points now, as I'm pulling them, I'm kind of pulling them off of the scan, but that's okay. Remember, the scan is just a guideline. You don't have to stick to it 100%. You have to trust yourself as the modeler to know what's going to work best for you. The scan is only good up to a point, and then it's, you know, it starts to be a little less useful. So for some of these interior surfaces, you're obviously not going to be able to do that with the scan, so you got to just use your skill as the artist to figure out how you want that to look and just make it the way that you want it to be. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to adjust it, and let's keep going upward. So I'm going to maybe do these, Control E. And now my blue axis is not on the sort of direction that I want. If I go on the blue axis, it's going to maybe not quite do what I want. Let's try this axis and then put a little bit of the blue one in there. So you can adjust it to do what you want it to do. Let's select these 2 points and just merge those down. And go into object mode. Alt-Shift-D to delete history. And I'm going to go full screen here just to give me more room. And going full screen is Control and Control and space bar. If you hit Control space bar, it goes into full screen, and to get out of full screen, you hit Control space bar again. Okay, and every now and again smooth it, see how it looks, and I think that looks pretty good. There's obviously some stuff that needs to be done here just because this surface is a little weird. So I think what I'll do is I will cut, just because I have some lines that need to follow here. As you can see, they come in here and then I need them to go around there. So I'm going to get my multi-cut tool, which is right there. Hold down Control, click one in here, and then now I don't know if I want to take all that geometry all the way up into here. I don't think I need it. So what I'm going to do is see if I can terminate some of this stuff in here. So for example, see, I need to just rearrange some stuff so it's not so crazy in here. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to take this new point here, select that one. I'm just going to merge these two. Oops. Merge them to the center, which is going to create this polygon here, which is a quad. So if I double click that, well, I guess I can't double click that. If I just select an edge, pull it with Shift, and then with V snapping, hold on V and snap those there and merge those. You can see now I've eliminated the need to run this edge through as well. And then this and this can be merged down into one. And now I've, reduced how much geometry I need to send through, because honestly it'd be a waste of geometry to put all that stuff in the back here where it's not going to be seen. So I've just found a way to reduce it. So I'm going to use my slide edge tool, and by the way I get those menus is hold down Shift and right click and slide edge tool, and then middle mouse drag it just to slide it along the polygon like that. Okay, and I'm just going to round this out just a little bit. All right, and just clean up. As a modeler, you're always going to be tweaking stuff as you go. So I think I can work with that. I think that looks pretty good. And just be careful that this doesn't cause a bump out there. So we're just going to move that in. And this is just how it turned out with my geometry. Yours may not have this issue. So if you don't have that issue, don't worry about it. I think I want to have some extra definition here. So right in here. Yeah, I think I like that better. So you can see the shoe is starting to really shape up here. Just got to do some of these annoying parts. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm sure you get the idea by this point. So rather than me sit here and drone on about the same thing over and over again, I think we'll go to time lapse, and I'll try not to speed it up too much so that you can actually keep track of what's going on there. So that is what we're gonna do right now.